Hello everyone, welcome back to another Massachusetts Central Radio Show. I'm your host Mike Mo, here for another vlog. Here for another radio entry, I believe it is 192. Hello everybody, welcome back to another one of these. I hope you guys enjoyed the last one. I see my Bobby Unser video that I did like 4 days ago on his passing. The day of his passing. That video has got like 17 views, and we are now at 5,237 views or something like that. Be amazing if I had 5,000 videos, right? I think I have like 1,300 videos or something like that at my disposal. So I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. You guys had fun. You guys refreshed. You guys are probably going back to school or back to work if you don't work weekends. I know I work part of the weekend and then I take Sunday, Monday off. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's a brand new week, and I have an announcement to make because it is the 10th. Because it is the 10th. It is also 3 days. I have 3 more days. 3 more. 3 more people before I get my vaccine. My second and final one. Hopefully I can drive up to the same Randolph one I did yesterday. Not yesterday, but 3 weeks ago. Get the second shot and wait my 15 minutes and then go on home. Well, not go on home because I have to technically go back to work. I'm going to have to ask my boss tomorrow, Pete, if I can step out for the shot. I'm pretty sure he won't mind it. It's at 11:57, so of course I'm going to have to get out at 11:40. And I will obviously tell all my teammates that I'm doing so, and then I can battle the last like 5 hours. Then when I get back at like 12, I get back the last like 5 hours. It's actually good that I actually have my shot at 11 or 12 o'clock, because that means I go on my break at 10:30, and then I can obviously, that means I obviously have another, 10. I'm going to try to go at 10 so I have enough time to do a bunch of work and not leave them hanging. I'm going to go super fast before I take my shot, and then I'm going to obviously do whatever. It's going to be an amazing week this week. Hopefully we do more of the same that we did last week, which was do awesome and dominate. Saturday was kind of a downer because we didn't have our leader in because he was sick, unfortunately, on some level. He said he was tending to a cold, even though I think he was tending to something else, but I'm not going to get into that. It's going to happen because it's COVID, and if somebody has the snivels or somebody isn't feeling very good, I don't blame you. I think one of the other girls that was with us was out 2 days because COVID scare, most likely, and the other guy did the same thing, COVID scare, most likely. It's just one of those things, and it's just hopefully they're doing all right. Hopefully they're doing good. The other girl came back after 2 days, and that's good just to see them healthy again, because you don't want to see a teammate in poor health. I think we're switching ABMs, assistant business managers, in the world of Restaurant Depot. I don't have to listen to the 50,000 different acronyms, which is great. I don't have to listen to GSTL, GSA, ETL, assistant ETL, team lead, sub-team lead, and of course some team leader wannabes that didn't want to do their jobs, but that thought, team leader wannabes that acted as if they could do their job, but they really couldn't. I knew a bunch of those, so did April. April and I were actually one of the leadership types that were the only legit semi-leadership types, actually, in this whole story. It was actually pretty nasty that we got treated the way we did. I mean, the only reason why we got treated like that was because we've been there a long time, and probably being senior team members, we got treated a little differently, and people are like, oh, you're supposed to know what to do and all this other stuff. Well, I digress, but I didn't want to talk about that today. I just wanted to tell you guys that I'm getting my shot, and that's happening at work. I wanted to do automotive talks today because it is Monday, and I definitely want to do it. Hope you guys are up for it for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or something like that. So my topic today, usually I pick another topic. It was EVs last time, and how the history of packaging and pricing was done. I gave you guys the history lesson on how the auto companies did that way back when. So I wanted to tell you guys that the reasoning behind some of the greatest sports cars of all time. So each sports car has its own story. Each sports car has its own up and down periods, times of doubt, whether it's going to be killed off or not, whether it's going to live, and everything like that. The one thing I want to talk about is maybe the greatest invention of all time, and one I hope that we're going to keep going because hybrids are going to allow it to happen. That would be the small block V8. And no, I'm not talking about the flathead V8. That was Ford's invention. Flathead V8s were great. It was a great innovation over the L head and all those other great V8s that they did in the early 1900s. Unfortunately, the flathead had a tendency to run a little hot, and you get something called vapor lock. For those of you guys who know, if your carb or your fuel ran a little too hot, the cars would start, but wouldn't start for real because the fuel going into the carburetor would be a little too warm, and the engines always lost power and stuff like that, and they would never be at their maximum peak. So there was also the nailhead V8 from Buick and all this other stuff until 1955, when Chevrolet came out with the modern V8, the V8 we know today. I'm not saying the flathead, because the flathead, as I said, ran hot. It wasn't very tunable. It was good for some horsepower tuning. You could do it, and it was a little bit different than the Lincoln V12, which sounded amazing, and it was a little different than the L-head V8, which sounded amazing. And it was a step away from the straight eights. Buick, Alfa Romeo, and a bunch of other car companies in the 30s, 40s, and 50s were known for the straight eights. Eventually, in 55, Chevrolet came out with the V8, with the real V8, and separate cylinder heads, and the V configuration. I forget how much it was. I think it was. So they came out with the V8 that we know today. 2 valves per cylinder, carburetor. Eventually we get fuel injection later. Eventually we'd adopt fuel injection later on in the late 50s, thanks to the Germans. And the small block V8 would start out at a measly 265 cubic inches. That's a lot bigger than the 32 flathead V8 that really didn't run all that well, and it got some tuning from Zora Arkostontov with the Ardun heads. Yeah, it was able to make a whole lot more power, and he tried to qualify. And what's funny is he tried to qualify such engine for the Indianapolis 500 back in the 40s and 50s, and he failed to do so because the car as I said, the car was very good, but it ran hot and it wasn't making the power. And remember, back then, a lot of those IndyCar tracks were dirt tracks, so the power kind of got swept away, and there was a loss-loss situation. When the 265 V8 came out, that was a whole lot different. When it came out in 55, it made 100, well, in base tune, in the Chevy Bel Air, well, in the Chevy Bel Air, it was a 265, which was a 4.3 liter V8, making about 165 horsepower. Jump to the Corvette, it was making, I don't know, 190 somewhere, 180, 190, because it had power pack, it had a big 4-barrel carburetor, and it had a 3-speed manual later at 55. And that boosted the Corvette sales. It helped it up against the Thunderbird because it almost died. Between 53, 54, 55, the Thunderbird almost killed off because the Thunderbird was introduced in 54, so they needed something to kill. So they needed something that wasn't going to kill it off, and thank God they came up with the V8, and that was able to improve acceleration, top speed. I think the Corvette was tested at back in the day at 106, 107. There's different. It was able to boost the top speed of the Corvette from 107 or 108, whatever you want to say, to like 118 or 120, and that was because the car had another 40 horsepower. Because the car originally had, the car had got another 45 horsepower. Because the car originally had 150, then it got 155 from the flat 6, and then it got 195, hence the top speed increase, acceleration. It was a little bit more weighty. Also, it cost less. It was like $2,900, which was not exactly chump change back then because it wasn't pocket change. The average worker back in 55 made, I don't know, maybe $1,000, $1,500. If you were lucky, you made $2,000. If you say it because things were a little bit different back then. If you wanted to spend $3,000 on a car right now like that, $3,000 wouldn't be too out of reach. You could pay it, and you'd be, oh, I have a new car. Too bad a 55 Corvette doesn't cost that much today. It doesn't cost that price today because a really decent for 955 Corvette V8 probably set you back, I don't know, $80,000. I'm gonna say like 70 to 80 grand, which is way more than it was ever intended to be, because while it's collectible, and if you had a convertible, numbers matching, the car was very well done. You know, some of these cars were at 70, 80 grand, maybe even more. And some really good survivors, some really pristine ones can fetch 100 plus. Even more than the original 53s can go for, I don't know, $300,000-$400,000, which is a lot. So the 265 soldiered on. It was 56, 57. We eventually got the 283, and then we got fuel injection, and then later in 60, 61, 62, we got the 327. The 327 became kind of a base model V8. It would be the basis for the Corvette. It would be the basis for the Camaro. It would be the basis for the Impala, the Chevy Nova when it first went to SS mode in the early 60s. It would also be the nice go-to model if you didn't want to pay $1 million for if you didn't want to pay $1 million for a muscle car that cost like 3-4, and it was a nice alternative to a lot of the imports. Now the imports could corner better, but they couldn't fight the American cars in a straight line. Well, not the Corvette. The Corvette could corner and go fast in a straight line, so it kind of had the Europeans covered in most places. Then the small block sort of receded back. It was kind of an economy version. It was kind of a workhorse engine. A lot of trucks had it. Because in 1965, 66, the 350 came out. 66, 67, the 350 came out, and that replaced the Stowbolt 6, the 250, the 250, and then the 230 cubic inch flat six, a flat six, straight six, and then the 250 straight six, and then eventually the 327 would be the workhorse engine. But from like 67 on, the 350 sort of became sort of the truck engine. So you could put it in Chevy trucks, and it could just, because it had decent power, you could tune it, because you could put 250 horsepower, 300 horsepower, 350, 370. You could put a lot of horsepower in the 350 and the 5.7. And then 6870, 6970, the 350 became the LT1 package. It would get 370 horsepower. Then 71, 72 is when the 350 really came into its own, because the 350, in my opinion, was one of the best V8s to ever exist during the fuel crisis eras. If there was one engine that lived the longest, it was the fuel crisis era. So from 67, when it was introduced, to I think 2005, 6, I'm going to say, that little engine was kind of a staple in Chevy's lineup. And that 350 V8 would power Cadillacs, Cadillacs, Oldsmobiles, Pontiacs of different makes, Camaro, Firebird, couple of Chevy Vegas would have it, Chevy Nova would have it, till it got canceled in the late I'm going to say in the late 70s, mid 70s is when they stopped using that. Then they went to the 3-point iron cast iron V6, which was the 3800 V6, which was another ubiquitous engine in General Motors lineup. But the 350 ended up powering a lot of cars in the General Motors because it was reliable, it was cheap to make, it could be tuned to make any type of horsepower. It was a workhorse for commercial vehicles, still is today. Some people still will use it in their trucks. Some people will use it for nice little economy hot rod builds because it's very tunable. Its limits, though, were in its displacement because it was 5.7. You really couldn't get more than stock. The most it ever got, the 5.7 ever got, was 405 horsepower, and that was out of the Z06. Callaway would be able to tune it to give 6, 7, 8, 900 horsepower, but there would be Callaway, Lindenfelter, Mallet, and it would also be the basis, and the 350 V8, the LS1, would be the basis for the C5R racing engine. So it did more things than one, and it powered IROC cars, it powered NASCAR stock cars for a while, I think, before they put it up to the 358 cubic inch, which we still have today. But yeah, its last big breath was in 2006 when it actually powered when I think it actually last powered when it powered the GTOs and a couple of the mid-sized Pontiacs. And after that, Pontiac, as you guys know, went away. And of course, I'm going to say 1998, 2000, 1998, 99, 2000, that formed the base, that engine, the LS1, would form the basis for the LS7, which would be introduced in 2006 with the Z06, but it also powered the C5R, the C6R, before it was changed over to a 5.5 in 2009. So that 350 V8 was absolutely amazing. And so yeah, that's the Chevy small block. So that's the Chevy small block. And of course, we get, Ford, you guys know, 289, 390, 427, 428, 429, 460. We'd get up to the 460, but the real stars of the Ford lineup would be the 280, would be the 260, 289, the 302, and then the 350, and then the 351 Cleveland, which would be introduced in the late 60s, early 70s. Chrysler, we all know, came up with the R8 block, the 360, well, the 318, the 360, and then the 383, which was considered a small block. And then, and of course, we get the modern Hemi, 5.7. And then, of course, we get the modern, of course, we get the 6.4 supercharged Hemis of today. But we still have, but the Challenger and the Charger still have the 5.7. They still have the, DNA from the small block, from the 360 V8 that they used to put in the Magnums, the Chargers, and the Darts, the Valiants, the Volare. Not the Valera, like most people say, it's Volare. Like the Dean Martin song, Volare, Volare. It's Italian. And then, and of course, the British would use our engines, would use the small block engines. The real good economy engine that Buick would use was the 215 Special. That would be their small block. They would also use the 350 in a lot of their cars. And if you didn't want a big 400 cubic inch or the 455 Wildcat engine or the Ram engine, and I think Pontiac had theirs. Pontiac had a 3. Pontiac had the 389, but the Pontiac already had also had like a 320. Pontiac also had their small blocks. They had they used the 350 in the late 60s. A couple of nail heads and everything like that. But General Motors, but the engine that defines, the workhorse engine that defines General Motors most of all is the 350. Which evolved from the 265, the 283, and the 327. The workhorse engine for a lot of Ford models, especially into the 90s, would be the 281 4.6 modular engine, an engine that really did its job a lot of the times. Really good engine, really robust engine, good for police cars and stuff like that. So it helped out a lot. It catched out a lot of bad guys, and it was a great engine to tune. Steve Saleen liked to do it. Kenny Brown, which was a tuner back in the day, liked to use it. Ford Performance was also good with it. Cosworth was also good because Cosworth was also in there as well, because they made the DFV. For those of you guys who don't know, the DFV, the Formula One engine, another small block, another high revving small block design. Of course, a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, it's too exotic. It's double overhead cam. It's got 400 horsepower. It's an IndyCar Formula One engine." Now it's a small block engine, same architecture. Kind of a short stroke version of that, but it's a small block nonetheless. 183 cubic inches to be exact, but it's still a small block because it's still less than like 6.5 liters. Small block has to be like, small block is like 6.8 or 6.9, and it depends on what the nomenclature is and stuff like that. So, so the small block V8 was started by Ford. The early V8s were L heads and stuff like that, but the first modern V8, though, the basis for it would be Chevy's 350, 1955, 265, 2-barrel carbureted V8. The end. 165 horsepower. It actually would be And as I said, the 350 that would be introduced in 65, 66, 67 would be the basis of many good economy models, especially during the fuel crisis eras. I'm pretty sure Ford had the 5.0. Chrysler, I think, had the 318 and 360. Plus the 3-liter wasn't technically theirs, but they had the 3-liter Mitsubishi V6, which is kind of weak. Sort of, kind of really. But yeah, there's no replacement for displacement, and nothing beats the rumble of a full-blown American V8. Don't care if it's 260 cubic inches. Don't care if it's 427 cubic inches or 460 or whatnot. If it has that, if it is a V8 and it makes a rumble, it is a good car. It is a good car engine in my book. Even though the electrification thing is coming on, maybe electrification can kind of help that stay alive just a little bit longer. But yeah, it's a good automotive lesson, guys. Thought I'd tell you guys a little bit about the history of the V8 and the importance of it. I may do different engines for automotive news, but just know this, that without the V8 engine, we wouldn't have racing. And I kind of think the Italians, who actually came up with it, because it was technically the Italians that came up with the V8. Just a little bit. I mean, Americans did, but the Italians came up with the really good ones, especially the supercharged straight eights from the Alfa Romeo single seaters. If you guys haven't heard, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, look up Alfa Romeo straight eight, Alpha to Tipo P3, Alpha Tipo P3B, and just listen to that noise. That is where that is technically, the straight eight isn't modern by any standards, but it's actually the sound of what modern engines. It's actually sounded damn shit better than what the Germans had. Yeah, the Germans were brutal with their V8s and their V16s, but that little straight eight did the job. Plus, it outhorsed the Germans like 3 times, even though the Germans won everything. But yeah. So I just wanted to say, everybody, that's my little history lesson on the V8, what it did for us. And I may do another part to this. Maybe I'll go into the specifics of what the V8 did. I just want to give you guys an overview of how the V8 kind of changed our world. I may go into the specifics of the V8 one in another video. I don't know when that's going to be. Who knows? With my uploading schedule, it could be never. But hope you guys enjoyed this. It's currently 11:06, even though my computer's saying 11:18. I'm going to go to bed as soon as I upload this. But yeah, guys. But as I say, everybody, long live America. God bless this great country. Long live all of our lives. God bless us all. Keep us from harm, from evil, viruses. Let my friends stay strong. Pray for all those souls that we've lost, either from COVID, natural deaths, or just remember all. I'm just saying, remember all the souls. Also, pray for my friends. Keep them all safe. Give them strength to keep going, and let them last for many years to come, so we can create great memories and have fun as soon as this damn virus is over. And also, bless me, God, please, and give me the power to succeed, to give them power, and to give the world power, so we can all have a good time, so we can all get our lives back on track. Which normalcy will start Thursday, after I get my shot. Alright, folks. Peace. Hope you guys enjoyed this automotive lesson. This is part 1 of the history of the V8. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Don't go away.